All right. Man, go ahead.
The Comedian Radio Show. You've been silent this whole time. I thought you were just,
All right. See, I'm going to just chill, man.
Welcome back to Comedian Radio Show on News Talk 990 WLEE, News Talk 990.
Numbers to call 788-0990 or 1-877-953-3990. You can also stream us live online at www.wlee990.am. And don't forget to check us on Facebook, Twitter, and all these other millions of social sites. On the line with us, we have Bilal, a good friend of mine, actually. Known him a couple years, quite a few years now.
BC graduate.
Yeah, I think I'm getting old. It's more than a couple years.
I think he actually played lacrosse.
Yeah, great lacrosse player. I wouldn't want to play him. He's just a physical guy. He just likes smashing into people. But he has this this blog, Journey to Hajj, which kind of not yet. He's chilling. I gotta ramp him up. Okay. He has this awesome blog, okay? Now, I've always known Bilal. He was great with photography and, and his journalism apparently is on point, because when I saw this blog of his recollection of his trip, I was pretty amazed. I haven't actually read the whole thing yet, but it is a great insight into a, especially somebody that that you can relate to. When you read this, is really touching. So we're going to bring him on. His name is Bilal. I don't know if you want to give him his last name. I'll leave that on the low. Bilal, you on the line?
Hey,
Walaikum salam to Allah. How you doing, man?
Show. Good, man. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, thanks. How are you?
All right.
It's not too early for you young buck, is it? You young bucks.
No, it's okay.
Thank you. See? I think that's why we can't get the people who want to get out here, because it's too early for them, because all the cool people are asleep.
Like I said, I almost slept through the show this morning. So.
Well, welcome to the Comedian Radio Show.
Thank you
Thanks
very
for calling in. So tell us about when was a little bit about, when you decided to go to Hajj, why you decided to go at the time that you did.
Okay, well, last year is when I was able to go, and interestingly enough, it wasn't really my decision. It was mostly my parents. They really wanted to go, and so they were like, we want to go this year, and you're not in school anymore, so why don't you come with us? And you can kind of afford it now. You've been working for a little while, so I was like, you know what? I don't really have a reason not to go, so I guess I'll do my best to try to work it out. So last year, the real reason why I went was basically because my parents had reached out and asked me. So we made the arrangements, and then and the weird thing about Hajj is you don't necessarily know that you're going to go until the very last minute. Mm-hmm. There's so many people that make arrangements, and then just when it comes down to it, they just something will happen, things will fall through. So I was kind of trying not to get my hopes up too much,
right,
until it was absolutely confirmed that I was going to go. And yeah, man, so it wasn't really till the last maybe day or two before I left that I was like, yo, I'm actually going for Hajj. It's kind of crazy.
Right. Is that when it kind of set in or sunk in?
Yeah, that's when it really started to hit me, and I was like, okay, I'm actually going. And then I realized I was I'm not really prepared mentally and spiritually. I don't really know how to make the best of it. So I started to scramble and try to find stuff online and Google and all that kind of stuff to really see what I could figure out,
Gotcha.
Yeah, I wanted to just expand a little bit on that. I think what people don't realize is how much you're relying on other people to get stuff done for you that you can't do. I mean, it's not that you can't do for yourself, but you have to rely on others to do just because of the way the system is set up. For example, if you're going through with a group, some particular groups apply for your visa. They apply for your visa on your behalf. So you have to send your, passport material and all this kind of stuff to this, travel agency, and hoping, that, they're gonna do it the correct way, and that there aren't any kind of snags of that sort. So that had been your first time that you had gone to Hajj, correct?
Yeah, this is my first time even going to Mecca. It was just a very, very amazing experience.
Yeah, you said that there's a big difference in terms of your experience there prior to Hajj as opposed to when I guess the masses arrived. So you were able to get there before the big influx of that that 2-week period of Hajj, correct?
Yeah, so one of the things about the package that we had, it was kind of like we sort of bought our own tickets and we made some of our own arrangements to sort of save costs because it ends up being very, very expensive. So we were able to do some of these minor arrangements on our own and then jump onto like an existing package group with somebody else. So one of the things that comes with that is that we had to buy our ticket to go earlier because like the earlier you go, the cheaper it is. So we went. We ended up being there it was something like 2 weeks before Hajj started, and when you go, like it's still packed.
Wow.
So since it was my first time going, I was like, yo, this is really, really packed, not knowing how packed it was really going to get in another 2 weeks. Because if I had known, I would have been doing so much other stuff, like trying to take advantage of just
so when you got there, I'm sorry, so when you got there 2 weeks early, you already thought that was basically the maximum number of people that were going to come.
I didn't imagine that was going to be like the full capacity. I was like, okay, maybe some more people are going to show up, but like it was still busy. You know?
Maybe
a couple more people to the party.
We can pull up a couple more chairs.
Yeah, I mean, because the thing is, like when it gets to like full like capacity of like how many people are there, like for Hajj, it's absolutely unbelievable. Like you can't imagine how many people can possibly fit into one tiny little area. It's ridiculous. Like you'll literally like the very, very last Jummah that we prayed, the last Friday prayer that we prayed, after we left the masjid, like I'm not even joking, for 2 hours we were standing out in the courtyard. We couldn't move because there was no space for you to even, like, you just had the space that you were standing and there's nothing else. You didn't have space to like turn your body. You didn't have any space at all.
Wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've not gone to Hajj. I coined this term called out of season Hajj, which is when you can go there when it's not time for Hajj. It's called Umrah. And I went in Umrah during Ramadan, and so I got the crowds for the last 10 days of Ramadan, so I have a little bit of idea of what you're talking about. It's kind of insane.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard that the Ramadan crowd can be worse than the Hajj crowd sometimes. I mean, so I imagine it's probably very similar to what we went through.
It is, yeah. Especially since in my experience, my sandals were moved because I put them in a part where where it was reserved for the imam, for the religious leader to lead the prayer. So they moved my shoes. I couldn't find them, so I had to walk 1.5 miles to my hotel without any shoes.
Barefoot?
Barefoot.
That's incredible.
And we're not talking about paved streets here, people. All right, I feel like my dad, barefoot up the hill. But anyhow, I digress.
I actually, real quick, this question pop. So is the ground hot there, or is it just it's just overall warm, but it's not like, you walking on coals?
Well, I mean, it depends on where you are. Like, if you're in the masjid itself, it's all like, it's pretty much all marble, all white marble. And so, like, it stays very cool because it's white.
Right.
And then I've heard that they have, like, especially, like, around the Kaaba itself and, like, some of the lower levels, I've heard that they have, like, these pipe systems that run underneath the ground and, like, they do, like, keeps it cool and stuff like that. So when you're walking, it is actually pretty cool, unless it's, like, very, 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 very sunny.
Right.
And you might feel a little warmth, but you do have to be barefoot, so it is something to think about.
It is, yeah. The parts that are in the sun get pretty hot. So what was your did you decide to write about your experience? Did you plan that out beforehand, or was that just kind of like an afterthought?
Kind of yes and no. Like I knew that I didn't want to take my phone with me. I knew I didn't want to be online. I didn't want to be like tweeting or anything like that.
Right.
So the thing is that, like, usually when I use Twitter, when I use like Facebook and all these like online media tools, I use it mostly to kind of like document like things that I'm doing just for myself to, even be able to go back and be like, oh yeah, I remember I did this and this. But I was like, I want to document still my Hajj, but like I don't want to be connected. So then I was like, I could just go old school and bring a journal with me and just actually write. So when I was there, that's mainly how it started out, is me just writing things so I wouldn't forget them.
Okay.
Like when, just kind of like to be able to come back and tell stories to people. And it was never, like the blog that I had was never like a thought that I had when I was there. It wasn't like a journal that I was doing to write, to share to other people. It was mostly so I can remember it for myself. And then, like, if I wanted to tell other people, then it would be easier for me to remember. So the crazy thing is that, like, when you're there, like, you have so many interesting experiences and so much, like, you see so many things that you never imagined that you would see. And I had the good fortune of being able to write it all down. When I came back, I was like, yo, like, this is some crazy stuff. I really got to share this with people.
Yeah, day 15 was interesting.
Yeah. I got a couple passages here to read. I'm on day 13. But before we go to that, let me I had a question for you. You're listening to the community radio show. The numbers to call are 788-0990, toll free 877-953-3990. We're talking to Bilal, who is a VCU graduate, works up in Northern Virginia, who had the good fortune of being able to make the pilgrimage to Mecca last year. We're talking about his experiences, and I wanted to ask you from what do you remember what it was like? Let me ask it in two different ways. First of all, what was your expectation of how you would feel with the first time you saw the Kaaba? And
you took my question. Go ahead.
And for those that we talk about, the Kaaba. Sorry, the only reference I give you is the black cube, but the symbolic house of God. What did you think it was going to be like when you first saw it, and what was it like for you when you actually did see it for the first time?
And how close to it were you able to get?
Okay, yeah. So
3P.
So, like, I feel bad saying this now, but, like, let me give you a story. For example,
that's all right. You're among friends. We're all friends.
So, like, I would, at work, right, we have, like, some TV screens that sometimes we would screen the Kaaba. Like, during Ramadan, we would screen, like, the tawaf and people making the circumambulation around the Kaaba and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, like, to just get in the mood for Ramadan, right? But I would kind of be like, yo, like, can we just watch, like, Al Jazeera or something like that? I'm like, why am I going to sit there and stare at people walking here in circles around the Kaaba, right? So for me, before I had gone, it was kind of like I didn't really, not that I don't want to say I didn't really care, but, like, I didn't see the big deal of the structure itself, right? So, I imagine, it'd be really, really awesome to see the Kaaba, but I didn't have, like, an intimate connection with the building itself. It was kind of just like, that's just the direction that we pray. But when you get there and you see it, right, like, there's, like, sayings of the Prophet, I think, where it says, like, just looking at the Kaaba is itself a good deed. And, like, it's really, like, the most mesmerizing thing you can ever see. And, like, just watching it, like, minutes and hours would go by of my day just sitting there staring at it and watching people. The same thing I had, like, objected to watching before, I would spend hours doing there.
Gotcha.
And watching people walk around it in circles, and it's amazing. It really is. It's a very grand, very, like, noble structure.
Right.
And it's very simple. It's just a big black box.
Right.
It's just a cube, and there's just, like, a sheet on it. But, like, when you're looking at it, you're like, wow, like, it's really, really majestic.
And real quick, if some people that are listening, I was doing some research on the Kaaba itself because I didn't really know a whole lot about, I guess, is a complete history. But it's actually been rebuilt a couple times, and it was actually larger than it was now at one point. Because it was, it was rebuilt and it was expanded. I remember at one point after the Prophet had died, it was another door was added because that's what the Prophet had wanted. But then it was at some point damaged, and I guess because of the region, granted it's the desert, but I guess at earlier points in time it was susceptible to a lot of rain and water. And it was actually damaged, through those methods as well as some other military attacks on it, which I had no idea about. But the fact that it's, I guess, still there and still, being preserved in its essence all the way since, the time of Abraham. And, we got to understand, especially the other people that are listening, we're all, Muslims, Christians, and Jews are considered the Abrahamic faiths. That's one tie that we all have in common. And for something to, have that history, I mean, I'm sure being there is definitely different than, or more than, I guess we can really imagine. Haven't been there.
Yeah,
so.
I know the flood that you're talking about. I think it was a big flood in the 20s where it was 7-8 feet of water. But yeah, the thing for me was I would kind of have flashes of going back, and it's almost like getting slapped in the face with cold water, as far as the realizing kind of the gravity and the weight of the historical significance of where you are, excluding everything else around you, as far as, like, wow, this goes back
Way back.
Way back. Thousands of years. You go back, and it's fascinating to see all the people that are there from all over the world. Did you get to a point where you were able to kind of tell where people were from? Because I could always tell the Africans from Nigeria, man. There were some big brothers. They were just
I mean, it's really, that's, I think, like you're saying, the thing that hits you, the thing that hit me the most being there was the fact that, like, that I was finally there, you know? This is a place that you've been praying towards your whole life. You've been, it's part of your history, your tradition, and it's finally there. And then what hit me was realizing that it was just as important to millions of other people around the world as it was to me. And these people are totally, like, they're from other reaches of the world that I never would have even imagined they're being Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. And, I mean, you do start to, and what's crazy is that, like, you see people from other parts of the world, and you realize that, like, other parts of the world, like, it's very, very, very different than America, because here we have Muslims that are all very, very diverse from very, like, very different backgrounds all together. But, like, in other countries, it's kind of like if you're from Mali, you're going to be, an African Muslim. If you're from China, you're going to be a Chinese Muslim. You don't have, like, Pakistani Chinese Muslims coming from China to make Hajj, which is kind of interesting because, like, from America, there isn't really, like, a very specific ethnic background.
Right.
That makes up the community, which is really, really cool to see. It's like kind of like, so when you're there, like, I'm there, and people assume that I'm Pakistani because I am from a Pakistani background, but it's never like, oh, you're American. Like, no, you're a Pakistani. Really, I mean, look at you, right? So it's kind of like, that's one of the really interesting things about the community that comes together.
Yeah, I think that the Pakistani pilgrims wanted to take you. They're like, no, I roll with the Americans. So that's the hood that I'm from.
That was actually one of my questions. From the social aspect, I guess outside of the group, is it pretty low, or is it just like that where you would come across people from different walks, and you may strike up a conversation in free time? Or I mean, what's the social, I guess that's probably the best way I can term it, the social atmosphere, because I mean, of course you have the prayer there and the supplication and all that. I mean, that's the core reason why you're there, but I guess just being able to meet people like that and see different people, what's kind of that social vibe, if any at all, which I mean might not. I mean, there's definitely an abundant opportunity for you to interact and engage with people from very, very diverse backgrounds, right? But what ends up happening, at least from my experience, is that not a lot of people do actually reach out and talk to people that are different from them, just out of maybe habit, or just the fact that there's, like, a comfort zone that they don't want to really go out of. Because a lot of people, if you don't speak Arabic, you really, like, how do you communicate with somebody from a different, because Arabic, it kind of becomes like the universal language for Muslims, but if you don't know the language, then how are you going to communicate with somebody from a very different background? It ends up being like maybe like through gestures or sign language. You're trying really hard, and there would be times when even I would communicate with people using, like, gestures and just trying to figure out what they're telling me and to try to communicate back. And you can still have very rewarding interactions like that, but it's not like everybody goes and everybody's just talking to each other all the time. It's people are very antisocial sometimes. They keep to themselves. They like to keep to their own groups, or maybe to their own ethnicities, because it's easier for them to communicate that way. Right.
So, like, that's actually one of the things that I guess one of my qualms with Mecca is that it is a Mecca in the sense that, like, people are coming together, but it was not a Mecca in the sense that people weren't really exchanging ideas and interacting in the way that I thought that they should.
Gotcha.
Right. So let me, before we go to break, I don't know if you're able to hold on, and we can come back into the next segment, but I wanted to read something from you. It says Day 13, tests in question. And this is just hilarious. It's very well written, by the way. As I was taking the shower around 1:30 p.m., and in the middle of it all, the water in the bathroom runs out. I'm standing there covered in soap. Well, I rinsed off some of the left half of my body when it ran out. At least you got half done. These little tests crack me up sometimes because they always catch you off guard. But they're real, and you can actually have to deal with them. So I stood there like WTH, and I hand squeegeed as much soap off my curves as I could. Please, ladies, this is a Hajj journal. Wow. So with that, you're listening to the Community Radio Show in WLEE News Talk 990. Our numbers are 788-0990, 877-953-3990. We're talking to Bilal about his experience on Hajj last year, and we're going to hold him into the next segment. Hope you can join us. Numbers are 788-0990. You're listening to Community Radio Show in WLEE News Talk 990.